Welcome back to Deb's True Crime Notebook. We have a wrap-up of this afternoon's testimonies, including Part 3 of Firearms expert Melissa Oberg and her testimony. So let's get right into it. Defense attorney Brad Rosie initiated his cross-examination of Oberg. Rosie inquired about Oberg's definition of sufficient agreement. Prosecuting attorney Jim Luttrell interjected, stating that it was a term specific to the industry, grounded in scientific meaning rather than a common understanding. Rosie then asked, "Are we speaking different languages?" Oberg replied, "It appears so." Rosie continued by asking Oberg, "Was there a moment when you couldn't definitively say the bullet came from that gun?" Oberg responded, "I cannot say with any certainty or percentage." Rosie remarked, "You told me you've never made a mistake in the lab." In response, Oberg referenced her deposition, where Rosie had asked if she had ever drawn an incorrect conclusion, to which she replied, "Not that I'm aware of." She also noted that, in her 17 years, she was not aware of anyone in her lab failing a proficiency exam. Rosie then questioned Oberg about the testing of examiners and changes in the administration of those tests, asking if likening the testing to paternity testing would be considered reckless. Oberg said yes. Rosie inquired if there was both support and criticism regarding firearm testing. Oberg agreed. Rosie requested Oberg to clarify what PCAST and NAS stand for. Oberg explained that PCAST refers to the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, while NAS stands for the National Academy of Sciences. Rosie asked if there is any ongoing debate within the firearm testing community about whether their field qualifies as science. Oberg affirms this, mentioning a 2016 PCAST report that called for more black box studies. The report criticized the lack of sufficient evidence or studies demonstrating how tool mark examiners operate. Rosie noted that the NAS was also critical. Oberg confirmed this. Rosie mentioned that the NAS report indicated labs should operate independently since tool mark examiners had close ties to law enforcement. Oberg noted that Indiana State Police examiners were affiliated with the Department of Toxicology and the Department of Health. Rosie inquired whether they were state employees, to which Oberg confirmed yes, they were. Luttrell pointed out that the NAS study Rosie referred to was from 2009, and Oberg agreed. Rosie then asked Oberg if her examination centered on an unspent round, and Oberg affirmed this. Rosie explained that a fired round experiences additional pressure and exists in an entirely different environment compared to an unspent round, which Oberg acknowledged. Rosie queried whether there was any proficiency testing for unfired bullets, and Oberg replied negatively, but mentioned that the unspent bullet is cycled. Finally, Rosie asked if Oberg's analysis was based on testing involving the fired round, to which Oberg confirmed it was. Rosie pointed out that there were 5 years between the murders and the confiscation and testing of Allen's guns. He inquired whether a tool might produce different markings over time. Oberg acknowledged that this was a possibility. Rosie then mentioned that Oberg was unaware of how frequently the gun had been fired or been used from 2017 to 2022. Oberg confirmed that she did not know. Rosie questioned whether a quality gun would typically create similar marks over time, to which Oberg agreed. However, Rosie noted that the cycling marks on the gun had changed between 2017 and 2022. Oberg expressed her discomfort in drawing conclusions based solely on ejector marks. Rosie challenged her, stating, "This is me asking you to show your work. Are you saying we just have to take your word for it?" He then asked if it was reasonable for the jury to examine a photo of Oberg's work to form their own opinions. Luttrell objected and wondered if a trained tool mark examiner would rely on photos to reach a conclusion. Oberg responded that it would be unwise. Luttrell further questioned whether it would be prudent for the jury to make conclusions based on the photographs. Oberg responded with a firm no. Special Judge Gull upheld the objection. Oberg explained that when lab analysis do not reach a consensus, they perform additional tests. If disagreements persist, they escalate the matter to a supervisor. There is subjectivity, Oberg acknowledged. And this is quite subjective, isn't it? Rosie inquired. Oberg agreed, noting that this subjectivity is the reason for the scrutiny. He mentioned that some critics argue that due to this subjectivity, tool mark analysis does not qualify as a legit science. The court took a break at 3:40 p.m. And now let's do a recap of this afternoon's court session, where defense attorney Brad Rosie initiated his cross-examination of Melissa Oberg. She is the firearms specialist that did the testing of the bullet and the firearms for the Richard Allen case. So it looks like they brought up a lot of industry information. One of the things they did ask her is, was there ever a moment when you could definitively say the bullet came from that gun? And Oberg responded, I cannot say with any certainty or percentage. So I think that was what they were going for. They also wanted to bring out the fact that there's a lot of discrepancy between whether they believe this is an exact science or not. Rosie had Oberg clarify what PCAST and NAS stand for. PCAST is the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, and NAS stands for the National Academy of Sciences. Now, he did point out, or had her point out, that the PCAST report is calling for more black box studies, and the report criticized the lack of sufficient evidence or studies demonstrating how tool mark examiners operate. The defense also pointed out that it was 5.5 years ago from the time they got this weapon to look at, that there could have been changes, that it is possible rust, etc., could occur if the gun wasn't kept clean and used quite often, and that could have made some of the striation marks. For the most part, I believe that the defense probably caused the jury to have some questions and maybe created a little bit of doubt. However, from what I saw and what Melissa Oberg presented, she did an excellent job. She was clear, concise. She showed them the inside of the barrel of the gun, pictures of it. I'm not sure that the defense was able to rock that testimony, but it's possible they did create doubt there. And that wraps up our recap of today. I've been told that Melissa Oberg was the only one that testified today. I will continue to check on that. If there's more, I will be bringing it to you. But that's what I have so far tonight. The end and wrap up of day 7. We'll see you next time on Deb's True Crime Notebook. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell for all notifications. Leave us a great message. Let me know what your opinion is. Were you swayed one way or the other by Oberg's testimony or what the defense had to say? I'm curious to see what others thought. Don't forget to share this video in groups, and we'll see you tomorrow.